Hello, friends. I am recording this just after the live stream conversation that I've had with Margie, Nicole, and Abby. And just because it's like on my mind, and if I leave it, I'm going to forget it, right? But one of the things I was thinking about is there is still quite an emotive response when we talk about fragility, particularly white fragility. This isn't about that terminology specifically, but this whole idea of fragility, but also, like, forget fragility for a minute, actually, privilege, white privilege, right? And even though I'm assuming that everybody understands in this context what privilege actually is, there are still a lot of people who list all the things that mean that they don't have privilege in their lives. And what I was thinking is, at the end of the day, we all have privilege in some way, shape, or form. This was kind of the conversation that we had this evening. We all have privilege. But is the challenge with that word is because it has such a negative connotation in that it's not a negativity in itself, because it's about recognizing that you have something that somebody else doesn't. But because when it's steeped into this whole idea of racism and white supremacy and, you know, white people being at the top of the totem pole and all of this stuff, like, people have an instinctive, they recoil from the word and the phrase without using it as an opportunity to propel them to do something to affect the change that we're all trying to see. What if you substituted the word privilege for power? And what if we said to people, like, what we're talking about is that there's an innate power that you have as a white person, that society gives you because of the colour of your skin, that I will never have. It doesn't matter how influential I am, but the society being the way it is, and in some cases with workplaces being the way that it is, the power that you have as a white person, I will never have that. I can be more senior than you and you can still have more power than me in this context. But actually, when you talk about power, and as such as human nature, you know, we all kind of sit back, chests up and go, oh, no, you know, I quite like the idea of being seen as powerful. Right. What's that saying? With power comes great responsibility. So then if we switch the language, or, you know, the internalization of privilege and thought about power, you then get into the space of thinking about the benefits and the responsibility of power, but also how you can use that power to help uplift other people. Do you know what I mean? And I know it might seem like pedantic, like turning in, you know, difference in terminology, but like, I do think that there's a lot of unnecessary conversations happening, and there's a lot of barriers that we're still trying to, like, scramble over or leapfrog over. And a lot of it is because people are still spending a lot of time rejecting some of the terminologies. Like, there's a lot of, you know, and I talk to a lot of people, and I'm having lots of conversations about this, who don't like the term white supremacy, who don't like the term white fragility, who don't like the term, you know, white privilege. And, you know, they're going on to these reasons why I'm not fragile, you know, it's not. And, you know, with these, some of these words are having negative connotations, and because they have negative connotations, we can never get people to the point where they recognise they can do something. Do you know what I mean? Where they recognise they can act, where they recognise that, you know what, rather than, like, we're not expecting you to apologise, we're not expecting you to feel guilty, because it is what it is. The true question is, what are you going to do with it? You know, what are you going to do about this situation where fundamentally black people are not afforded the same treatment because of the colour of their skin? They're not afforded the same opportunities. Like, what are you going to do with that power when you then feel like, shoulders back, head up, there is a responsibility that goes with that? And maybe that means we have to have another conversation about language. I don't know, like tell me what you think about that one. But is it, with some of this, that even language is a barrier? Or, like, let me give a contrary view. Is it that we're using language as an excuse? Because somebody could sit here listening to me and go, well, actually, Shereen, I think, you know, people arguing the toss over certain words is actually more a distraction tactic than it is that, like, they genuinely feel affronted. Like, they're anchoring their annoyance or, you know, disagreement with these words which means that you don't have to have the conversation about anything else, because the conversation never goes any further, other than, you end up arguing the toss about why you're privileged, and all of that stuff, which, to be fair, in the early days, that's exactly what I used to engage in. Like, I don't do it anymore, but I was one of them ones that still like, what I mean is, John, when I took, and you get into all of this. So I don't know, let me know what you think, but I do wonder, is the terminology sometimes more of a hindrance rather than a help? And is that anchoring people in this idea of, like, we're blaming white people? Do you know what I mean? It's a little bit like an extension of this whole idea of, some people who believe that all white people are racist, which, as you know, I do not prescribe to, or don't subscribe to that. I think there are a lot of people who are ignorant, as we are all ignorant in lots of different ways, and they're two different things. Now, when you know better, therefore you cannot feign ignorance, and you still do nothing to dismantle some of the systems and the behaviours, and you don't change the way you view the world or the things that you do, and you're not more conscious about some of the things you do, then you could argue that you're making a choice, so therefore you lose the pass that you get from claiming ignorance, right? But I don't know, I just wondered if there's like something about words. So that's like my meanderings. So I'll share this video on Sunday, because I feel like you're more forgiving of my ramblings on a Sunday. Like, on a weekday, I feel like I have to be a little bit more on point, but this was just something that I was thinking about out loud. Like, if we, instead of talking about privilege, maybe we started talking about power. But then some people are, I'm definitely not powerful, and maybe we'll end up getting into the same conversation now that I think about it. But I don't know, let me know what you think, and I'll see you tomorrow.